Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. So we will first complete the balanced presentations and then go on to the next portion. Please come. Which team has to come now? 5. Team 5 is? Yes. Swami Vivekananda, anybody is here? Whole team, nobody is there. Okay. Okay, we go on to the next one then. Ramana Maharshi.
Namaste everyone. Born in 1879 near Madurai, Tamil Nadu, Ramana Maharishi was one of the most renowned saints at the start of the 20th century. At the age of 17, he was suddenly overcome by the feeling that he was about to die. He lay down on the floor, made his body stiff, and held his breath. My body is dead now, he said to himself. But I am still alive. In a flood of spiritual awareness, he realized he was the self, existing without any reliance on the physical body or material world. He then took permanent residence at the holy Arunachala hill with the town of Tiruvannamalai at its foot. He called Arunachala the spiritual heart of the world. Ramana Maharishi spent years living in temples and caves, meditating and pursuing spiritual purification, before finally settling in a place in an area called Ashram at Arunachala itself. He continued to practice the method of self-inquiry into the nature of self, best expressed by the expression, "Who am I?" He seldom ventured outside his abode, and yet such was his spiritual presence that he commanded veneration from all sides. He believed in silence to be the best way to understand the self. He never took any formal sannyas, nor did he claim to have any disciples. This is a picture of the Arunachala hill where he spent his entire life. Some pictures of Ramana Maharishi from there.
His teaching, his main teaching was around self-inquiry. Who am I? We all did homework in the last 2 weeks. What questions came to our mind? From where do I do this research? What content should I shortlist? How long or short should I keep the presentation? But how many of us thought, who is this who is doing the presentation? The question is not what, how, where, when. The question to ask is who? Who is it that doing this? Every time you are getting any thought in your mind, be it enjoying an ice cream, studying for the class, inquire, who is doing this? There are 2 quotations I like to say from Ramana Maharshi. What is illusion? A devotee asked the master, and the master replied, to whom is the illusion? Find it out, then the illusion will vanish. On similar lines, the devotee asked, on what should we meditate? The master replied, who is the meditator? Ask the question, remain as the meditator, then there is no need to meditate. While the powerful technique of self-inquiry is what the Maharshi taught, he also said, depending on your nature, you can follow whatever path that you like. And he has a book, Upadesh Sar, wherein 30 verses he is summarized the nature of Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Dhyan Yoga, and Gyan Yoga that can be followed. Another very famous book of the Ramana Maharshi is Tat Darshan, which includes talks with the Maharshi as well as inquiry into the truth of who am I. Moving on to Ramana Maharshi's silence. So while we inquire into who am I, it's a journey into deep silence. Maharshi said, silence is the speech of self. He also quoted, silence is also conversation. To emphasize this, while Ramana Maharshi was still small, he once went to Tiruvannamalai and sat in front of Ramana Maharshi, Swami Chinmaya. So Ramana Maharshi was sitting on the dais with his eyes closed. When the Maharshi opened his eyes, he looked straight into Swami Chinmayananda, a young boy that time. That mere look transformed Swami Chinmayananda, and he mentioned that the boy that walked out from there was a different boy. Such was the silence and just the mere presence of the master that the people felt a difference and got transformed.
These are some of the questions that devotees would ask. Suppose somebody did not want to practice, who am I, silence, then they would say, I want to practice repetition of a mantra rather than who am I. And this is the answer that he would give. Then you repeat I or I am. Focus your mind on the mystery of your own awareness. But he did not believe in chanting of mantra and repetition, and which are the normal ways of attaining liberation. Another thing is during the time of Ramana Maharishi, India was going through the freedom struggle. So a question which was asked, what are your views on the freedom struggle? And he replied, Gandhiji has surrendered himself to the divine and works accordingly with no self-interest. He does not concern himself with the results, but accepts them as they turn up. That must be the attitude of national workers, of surrender, and the rest would follow. Now we talk about the contribution to the revival of Hindu culture. The ancient path of self-inquiry, which is Atma Vichar, and teaching, which followed the path of Gyan Yoga, something on the lines of Advaitha, which was also shown by other great sages like Adi Shankaracharya, was revived by him. Vedanta prescribes the path of knowledge and the path of devotion to final emancipation. Yet the path of self-inquiry or Atma Vichar appears to be the hardest and is only usually considered approachable when the other paths or yogs of bhakti and karma have been followed first. Gyan is considered the highest and most direct path, one to which all souls must eventually come. The bhakti path was made popular by eminent saints like Sai Baba, etc. However, the Gyan Marg was considered the forte of scholars and philosophers associated with the various maths. And this was also a popular myth that scholars who studied the Upanishads or Bhagavad Gita and the Brahma Sutras alone had the possibility of liberation through this path. This myth was broken by Maharishi, who realized the truth with zero knowledge about the Vedantic works. So generally people first study the scriptures and then they come on the path of realization. But in case of Ramana Maharishi, he first found realization and then read the philosophy of scriptures, validating his experiences. Prior to Maharishi's instructions to seekers, self-inquiry was equated with discrimination or vivek. This meant that seekers were practicing self-inquiry using the intellect as a mental exercise. It was Ramana who gave everyone a direct path of instructing seekers to find the source of the I thought. He emphasized on discovering the reality of our own self, as opposed to trying to understand the world outside. During the colonial rule in the 19th century, Hinduism developed a large number of new religious movements, partly inspired by the European Romanticism, nationalism, scientific racism, and theosophy popular at that time. The image of Ramana Maharishi as a timeless saint served the construction of an Indian identity as inner-oriented and spiritual in opposition to the oppressive, outer-oriented, materialistic culture of the British colonial rulers. Hindus from all over India could look at the purely spiritual Maharishi as a symbol that inspired them to preserve their distinctive national culture and identity, which of course entailed forcing the British to quit India. Ramana Maharishi was also one of the most famous Advaitins who made no effort to accommodate the Darwinian theory of evolution. within an idealistic monastic framework. He dismissed the questions of evolution, both physical and spiritual, as irrelevant to the spiritual quest, since in reality there is no change in the Atma, no birth, no death, no reincarnation, and certainly no evolution.
To conclude, the entire Vedanta has been summarized in 3 simple words by Ramana Maharshi. Who am I? And alas, to conclude, we'll give a quotation. All paths become merged in the path of self-inquiry, just as all languages become merged in silence. Thank you. So it was Amrita Jaising, and we have Shreya Bajoria, who's from Kolkata, and she has given us some of her inputs as well, and Madhuri Kapoorji. Thank you.
Move up or down.
We are starting with a video.
मेरे जीवन का अवलंबन है बस एक ये मेरा बल है गुरुदेव
This was the beginning of how Swamiji's personal journey. We just saw the beginning of Swamiji's journey from his childhood and before he started, before he took sannyasa and then he started his journey of teaching the Vedanta. So Swami Chinmaya saw that Sanskrit language was dead and was losing context. So bringing back the teaching of the Upanishads could only be done by teaching it in English because that was the language of the intellectual India at that time. Swamiji envisioned that the reason for dissonance among the people around the world was the absence of a manual of living. So Swamiji conducted his first Jnana Yagna in December in 1951 in a Pune temple. The Gita was considered a holy book to be revered only at a place of worship. In the essence of Gita, Swamiji has dissected the text thoroughly and given the direct guidance for our problems. Gurudev once said, if you can't live the Gita in the marketplace, then throw the book in the dustbin. One of the 108 names of Swami Chinmayanand is Gita Jnana Yagna Pracharake, which means who is the propagator of Gita. In a fitting tribute to Gurudev, a devotee has once said, when Param Puja Gurudev Chinmayananda attained Mahasamadhi, Shri Krishna must have welcomed him into his abode saying, come, my beloved one, you outdid me, for I taught Gita to one Arjun, and you have awakened many Arjunas around the globe. Jnana Yagna, the term is coined from Lord Krishna's teachings in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, refers to the student who through scriptural studies performs the ritual of worship, Yagna, at the altar of wisdom of Jnana. The theme of the first Jnana Yagna was Let Us Be Hindus, in which he bemoaned the disconnect of the people with the truth of this culture and heritage. He sought to shatter the notions that people had formed about their own culture and religion and set to light the spark of truth that illumined the darkness within. The number of devotees eager to learn from Swami Chinmayananda's powerful, dynamic, yet logical and witty discourses increased rapidly. An inspired band of devotees thus formed the Chinmaya mission on August 8. 1953. Understanding the needs of the people came naturally to Swami Chinmayananda. For each individual, young or old, the knowledge solutions he had were the same, but he packaged them differently for each segment. These then became the core anchors for growth. As we all know, the different ways of teaching the same thing were brought up by Swami Chinmayananji. Some of them are the study groups where people met regularly on a weekly basis to study together. The next one is Devi groups. Swami Chinmayananji believed that the women required empowerment as they were the real custodians of the Indian spiritual culture. The next is Bal Vihara and Chinmaya Yuva Kendra. So everyone knows that children were closest to Swami Chinmayananji's heart, and he believed that spiritual values need to be sown at a very young age. The Yuva Kendra is for the age group of 13 to 30, where he based the principle of Yuva Kendra on Vedanta as a science of personality development. The next is Vanaprastha, which is for the people over the age of 60 to discover and design the purpose of their life. Then is the Vedanta course, which all of us are a part of, and we all are benefiting from the knowledge that Swamiji began. And this was a unique method to study Vedanta at home through easy lessons. The aim was to introduce the timeless Vedantic philosophy and to enable people to apply its priceless wisdom to day-to-day life. The next is the Sandipani system. His clear vision and hope for revived Hinduism, vibrant and roaring Hindustan, led to the coming together of eminent sages to the Sandipani in Mumbai, where the Govalkar and a band of inspired people, the VHP, was formed, where he groomed acharyas. In its nascent years, the messages of Na Hindu Patito Bhavet, Hindus can never become fallen, and Hindua Sahodara Sarve, all Hindus are brothers, soon emanated from its platform of committed vision. The next is the Chinmaya International Foundation, a research foundation that would commit itself to keeping alive the knowledge traditions of India through workshops, lectures, conferences, and thereby revive the depleting community of scholars and alongside develop a robust passion for Sanskrit, both as a language and as the edifice on which India stood. He wished to build an institution, not an institute. An institution grows with the people, adapts with time, but stays true to its vision. An institute often loses its purpose with the departure of the leader. The Chinmaya mission was thus designed as a perennial fountain of wisdom and knowledge that would adapt its course with time like the Ganga, yet never lose its purity also like the Ganga. In and through each of these, Swami Chinmayanand enlivens the mission and the mission of love and knowledge that he began in 1951. In his 42 years of relentless service, Swami Chinmayananda left an inedible mark in the hearts and minds of people, and his footprints in the multifarious service projects he inspired in the mission. Swami Chinmayananda had conducted 576 Jnana Yagnas as well as countless family spiritual camps traversing thousands of miles crisscrossing the globe and transforming millions of lives directly and indirectly. He authored over 95 books, including commentaries of the major Upanishads and a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. Swami Chinmayananda brought about a worldwide renaissance in Vedantic studies through his introduction of Adi Shankaracharya's works and teachings to ordinary people. A gifted storyteller famed for his wit, his eloquence, and the manner in which he brought Vedanta to guide practical living. Swamiji defined culture as when a group of people live together over a long period of time in a particular geographical area, living certain values, the fragrance that emanates from that group is said to be their culture. To prevent Prakriti from becoming Vikriti, what humans need is Sanskriti or culture. It is due to the vision, efforts, and blessings of Puja Gurudev and the grace of God that we are all here today studying the Vedanta with Swami Sswatmananda ji, and a part of the Jnana Yagna, which was initiated by Swami Chinmayananda, which has been a vital force in reviving Indian culture, and even today it is transforming each of us and millions of others. What Swamiji believed was what we have is a gift from him. What we do with that gift, what we do with what we have is our gift to him. So today let us all take the pledge to live more inspired lives. I would request everyone to repeat the pledge. Say it together.
Put the hand on the heart. We stand as one family.
Stand as one family, unto each other with love and respect.
Each other with love and respect.
We serve as an army, courageous and disciplined, ever ready to fight against all low tendencies and false values within and without us. We live honestly, the noble life of sacrifice and service, producing more than what we consume and giving more than what we take.
We seek the Lord's grace to keep us on the path of virtue, courage, and wisdom. May thy grace and blessings flow through us to the world around us. We believe that the service of our country is the service of the Lord of Lords, and devotion to the people is the devotion to the Supreme Self. We know our responsibilities. Give us the ability and courage to fulfill them. Om Tat Sat. So the group is myself, Vimalji, and we have Manav, Madhvi, Nandini from who are joining us on the webinar, and they all have contributed to the presentation today.
Well, I have nothing much more to add. Only thing is, I came to Chinmaya Mission in 1990, and I have attended 2-3 yajnas of Swami Chinmayananji also. And almost 5,000 people used to attend the yajna. And they used to so much wit and humor that 5,000 people are laughing together continuously, almost enlightened as well as entertained by Swamiji. And I attended a small Viveka Chodamani class also, and also when he attended Mahasamadhi in Siddhabari, his body was brought there and his Mahasamadhi, I attended that also. So I had this way, but I've never systematically studied the Vedanta. So this time we have joined here as the course. I thought I will do a regular Vedanta. That's all.
So one round of applause once again for all the teams who have presented. Swami Vivekananda, we will see in the next week, next class sometime. So I'm very happy that all of you have prepared so well, came together online, offline, both from different places. And the objective of this was to understand what these great masters have done for our culture. You know, Gurudev gave a talk once. The topic was the role of saints in national integration. Because many times people think that, you know, saints are supposed to withdraw from the world and just stay in a forest and do some spiritual practices. Why are they trying to do the nation building? They won't do the nation building if the nation is actually built properly. But when the decline has happened, then they won't sit quietly also, because their life is dedicated for the society and the service. So the first one we saw was Bhagavan Vedavayasam. So the group presented all the details very beautifully about what work he did. He was born from, he was born to Parashar Rishi and Satyavati. Satyavati is a fisherwoman. What is important for us to understand is this fact, that Vedavyasji, he was called as Krishna. His name is Krishna. He was born dark. And he was born on an island, so his name was Krishna Dvaipayan. He got the name Vedavyasa only when he compiled the Vedas in the written form. And the Vedas that he compiled in the written form, he classified them, each Veda, into 3 parts: Karma, Upasana, and Jnana. So Mantra, Brahmana, Aranyaka, Upanishad, that's the division that he made. We even today study the Veda. That's the foundation of our culture. What is important about his birth is this, that though he is a son of a fisherwoman, did anybody say that he is a son of a fisherwoman and he has compiled the Vedas, so we are not going to study the Vedas? Because one of the major issues against Hindu culture is the caste system. See, it will come in this chapter also, 7th chapter. But what is important to understand is that caste exploitation is not acceptable at all. But as a system, it was a system based on the temperament of individuals. And if somebody is found of a different temperament, though he is born in a different community, the culture has not stopped from accepting that person's merit. So the Vedas are written by Vedavyasa, who is the son of a rishi as well as a fisherwoman. That is one first aspect. Second aspect is what he did. So Vyasa literally means two meanings it has. One is compiler and second meaning is diameter. So diameter is a chord which is the longest in the circle, and that's the only chord that will measure the whole circle. So circle is symbolic of Purnatvam, completeness. Vedavyasji, as though, is one who has measured that or who has experienced that supreme. And to communicate that to the people, compiled the entire Vedas. Because in our culture, we believe that each and every person is divine and can experience that divinity while living here and now. So if you see one thing that is common amongst all the saints is the realization that they have experienced, they are keen to share it with the others and awaken others also. So he compiled the Vedas and he didn't stop with that. Just imagine, to compile the Veda itself is such a big thing. To make it easier for even small children, the same Vedic principles are written in the form of stories with hidden metaphysical truths, symbolism, all those things. So to make it easy for children, he also wrote the 18 Puranas. Now Puranic stories which are there, for children it will be stories, but as they grow up, the same stories will take a form of Vedantic understanding. Like Samudra Manthan is a story and how Amrit came out of it. But actually it is a depiction of the whole spiritual journey of an individual to enlightenment and how the churning of the mind happens, etc. So the stories he wrote for children. Then he presented the Mahabharata with all the ups and downs in the human life, the negative, the positive, and how the importance of dharma is there in that. So what he did for this culture, and he is supposed to be one of the Chiranjeevis. Chiranjeevi means one who will be there till the end of this kalpa. There are 7 such people. So if you know, Vedavyasji had a meeting with Shankaracharya ji also. When Shankaracharya ji wrote the commentary on Brahma Sutra, Brahma Sutra is to clarify the apparent contradictions in the Upanishads. Like we have Patanjali's Yoga Sutra for yoga, the science of yoga is based on the Yoga Sutra. For Naradji, we have Narad, for Bhakti, we have Narad Bhakti Sutra, Shandilya Bhakti Sutra, that way various rishis have written the sutras, aphorisms. For Vedant, the sutra is Brahma Sutra. So when Shankaracharya ji wrote commentary on that Brahma Sutra, he was very young, he was 16 years old maximum, maybe even younger than that. Vedavyasji came there as an old man, met him, he didn't reveal his identity. He said, "You are such a young boy, you have written commentary on the Brahma Sutras, let us have a debate." And they both had a debate. And Shankaracharya ji was able to convince Vedavyasji on every point that was raised. And Vedavyasji was so happy. He said, "You are destined to live only for 16 years. But seeing your knowledge and illumination, this must go to the masses, and seeing that missionary spirit that you have to reach this knowledge to the masses, I extend your life by another 16 years. So Shankaracharya ji lived for 32 years. He was destined only for 16 because when the parents prayed to Lord Shiva, the choice was whether you want a child who will be living for a long time but who will be very ordinary, or you want a brilliant child but who will live only for 16 years. And the parents chose the second option. So he was destined to be only for 16 years. Then Vedavyasaji extended. So he is a Chiranjeevi and also considered as one of the avatars of Lord Vishnu. So we say, you can repeat this shloka after me. Vyasaya Vishnu Rupaya Vyasa Rupaya Vishnave Namo Vai Brahma Nidhaye Vasishthaya Namo Namaha. So he is considered as the avatar of Bhagavan Vishnu. Salutations to him, who is an abode of knowledge about Brahman and who is in the parampara of Vasishtha. Now, he not only compiled the Veda, but he taught the Veda to one disciple of his to propagate. So Jaimini, Paila, like that, there are 4 disciples, main disciples, to whom he taught each Veda. So this is about Bhagavan Vedavayasam. Second is Gautam Buddha. So from Vedic times, when the culture started declining. Now why does the culture decline? Because the people become more attached to sense enjoyments, and when the ability to control the senses and the mind is not there, one becomes more extroverted. Then to live the higher way of life, one is not able to do that. Hence, what happens? A person and the whole society as such, if this is a prevalent thinking, then the entire society's culture will go down. So the Vedic culture and all the higher values of life, when they started declining by time, people started becoming more extroverted. They wanted to eat non-vegetarian food as their regular diet. So the animal sacrifices were brought in. If you see in the Vedic culture, animal sacrifices are not there. In the name of offering it to the deity, the animal sacrifices are brought in. Caste exploitation started. Blind ritualism was happening. So when all this was happening, Gautam Buddha was, he is born as Prince Siddhartha. And Siddhartha, when he saw these things, see, he first of all lived a very sheltered life. As the group mentioned, the father had kept him in the fort. But when he came out and he saw that the culture has declined, and he walked out of Hindu culture. He got Vairagya, all that the group has already said. How he got Vairagya, and then he left his home in search of absolute truth. He had studied the Veda actually. He had been taught. Maybe the way in which he was taught, the essence of it was not very clear to him. So he was still searching for the root cause of suffering. Otherwise, the Vedic knowledge makes it very clear that ignorance is the root cause of sorrow and suffering. Maybe he didn't learn the Upanishads part, the other parts of rituals, etc. were taught to him. So again, he went into search of the cause of sorrow. But what he found is these practices which are there, he didn't want to ascribe to any of the Vedic truths, so he walked out of it. So if you see from Sanatana Dharma standpoint, though Gautam Buddha is considered as an avatar of Lord Vishnu, in one of the systems, if you see, he is the 9th avatar of Bhagavan Vishnu. But he is also criticized because he did not accept the Veda and he did not believe in God. So as a philosophy, this you will see it in the future second part of this course, it will come. There is a Buddhism is classified as atheist philosophy. The definition for a theist in Vedic culture is one who believes in the Veda, one who believes in Ishvara is a theistic theist. One who doesn't believe in both is atheistic atheist. Then there is theistic atheist, atheistic theist also. That you will see as you go along. But even though he is an avatar of Lord Vishnu, see, Hindu culture has not rejected him. He is still a part of the Hindu culture, only saying he is the ninth avatar of Vishnu. And it's written in Bhagavatam also that Vishnu Bhagavan will come as this ninth avatar. He has already come as a ninth avatar and revive this culture. So he walked out of the Vedic culture and founded those principles of middle path, etc., which the group spoke about: non-violence, middle path, compassion, those aspects. Now, what happened is we generally learn that Jainism, who is the founder of Jainism? Now, that is a thing that has been fed into our mind, but that is not a fact. Same way for Buddhism. Who is the founder of Buddhism? Buddha. Mahavir Swami is the 24th Tirthankar. In this cycle, 24th Tirthankar of this cycle of creation. There are many cycles of creation. In each cycle there are Tirthankars who come. And in this cycle of creation, Rishabdev Swami is the first one. And Mahavir Swami is the 24th one. So Jainism is not founded by Mahavir. Same way Buddhism is not founded by Buddha. The word Buddha means awakened. The group mentioned that actually. Buddha means awakened, enlightened. So every enlightened master is called Buddha in their tradition also. And that's why they name the Buddha. So this Buddha is called Gautama the Buddha. There are many Buddhas before him. If you go into the history of Buddhism, you will know. In this cycle of creation, this particular Buddha, Gautama the Buddha, has put the maximum efforts. 500 disciples is what he trained. And those disciples went out. And they went all over the country. Plus they went to China, they went to Sri Lanka, they went to Southeast Asia, all different places they went. And spread this knowledge. Now what is important is to understand this point, that when we spoke about cultural revivals, we said the core principles remaining the same, adaptations have to be done to make it suitable for that particular time. Now, one of the mistakes that Buddha did was that the core principles, some of them he removed. So when they said, "Do you believe in God?" he kept silent. Form, idol, he kept silent. His silence was taken as a rejection. He didn't say yes or no. He was quiet. But as a result, what happened? Buddha and the philosophy, they removed one of the most important aspects, which is for the support for a human mind, is the form. Now, Buddhism as a religion, if you see, will have no form. But today the biggest idols in the world are made of whom? Buddha himself. Because they forgot one important aspect, that human mind needs a support system. You cannot remove the support. How will they think about the absolute formless? Very few are ready to do that. So if you remove it, every single person who has done that, this has made a backdoor entry again. J. Krishnamurti also did that. No religion, no God, no guru, nothing. No book, no scripture. JK only has become a guru now. The followers of JK are JKites. It already become a cult, a small group. Because it is human psychology. One has to understand that one needs a group, one needs a support system. So those core principles must remain the same. Also, one more thing to learn from Buddha's life is, there are two ways to reform a system. If you really want to reform a system, you have to stay inside the system and reform it. Chanakya said something very, very inspiring. He said, first you survive in the system. Then you establish this in the system, establish yourself in the system. Then you study the system properly. Then you change the system. If you walk out of the system and you create a new system, that is another way to do it, but that may not revive the old system. And Hindu culture being such a culture that is very interesting. If you try to create a new religion, you say, today these are problems in this Hindu culture. I'm going to walk out of this culture. I'm going to create a new religion. Try putting down. Did I give you that exercise? Last time I told you, if you put down a new religion, what will it come back to? You will find that all those principles are already there in the Hindu culture. So, such a comprehensive system, when he has gone out of that, ultimately again it has come back to those points only. Nothing wrong in going out. Just the point is to learn. One of the biggest difference between Adi Shankaracharya and Gautam Buddha is this, that Gautam Buddha walked out of the system to revive, to create a new system. Shankaracharya ji stayed within the system. So after Buddha left, the culture of Buddhism also started declining in a few hundred years. Hindu culture already had declined. Nobody revived that culture. Buddha was walked out of that culture and started a new culture. And lot of kings took up to Buddhism. That is another point to learn from Buddha. See, personally, the kings, when they took Bimbisar and Ashoka and all of these kings, when they took to Buddhism, Ashoka much later, Bimbisar was at the time of Buddha, Ashoka was much after that. When the kings dropped their arms, as a person, as an individual, the king has all rights to do it. But when he is in the position of a king and that king drops the arms, then the kingdom can become weak. One should hand over to an appropriate person who is strong, who is able to rule, and then convert and go on your own, journey of emancipation. If you see, the attacks into this country, the invaders started getting inside this country after Buddha's period only. And a lot of people dropped their arms. The army, suppose the army drops the arms today at the borders, what will happen? Enemy will get inside. When the Kshatriya started dropping arms, then it was easy for the invaders to get inside. So that should not happen. So now what happened as a result? Buddhism went through decline. Hindu culture also was in a declined position. So a situation in this country was, there is no philosophy to anchor the mind. There is complete directionlessness. No higher philosophy of life at all. At such a time is when Shankaracharya ji is born. When Vedic culture is on the decline, Buddhism is also on decline. And people are not living the higher values of life, and all these challenges of caste exploitation, of ritualism, animal sacrifice, all that is still prevalent. At such a time, Shankaracharya ji is born. Now, when the whole life of his, all of you already know, one important thing that Shankaracharya ji did was, how did he revive this culture? First thing he did was write commentary. That was his first plan of revival. Because when the culture declines, the core philosophy of that culture has declined. And people don't appreciate that philosophy anymore, so they are not living that philosophy. And the crux of the Vedic culture is the philosophy of Advaitha, that the individual, the universe, and the creator are essentially one. They are divine. That knowledge, the importance of that knowledge we have to understand, because when we see and live here in this world and everything is divine, then our relationship with the world also will be of mutual harmony, respect. If I don't believe in the divinity of the other beings, then what am I doing? I am limiting God also, and I am not seeing the world also as divine. I will indulge, I will exploit, I will be violent, be selfish, bring upon so much of sorrow and suffering on the universe. So through the philosophy of Advaita, human being also tries to understand that yes, I am not this perishable entity, I am that imperishable truth, as well as this whole universe is divine. So let me relate with this universe with that attitude of being worshipful. This core philosophy, all our rituals, the way of life, the ashram vyavastha, the caste system, 16 samskars, all these are meant for making the person ready to realize this absolute truth. So what we have to understand is, Shankaracharya ji understood that if Vedic culture has to revive, the essence of Vedic knowledge has to get revived first. And how to revive the essence of that Vedic knowledge? People don't have time to read the entire Veda. What are the main books of this Vedic culture in terms of the philosophy? Are Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita and then Brahma Sutra. These three are called Prasthanatraya. So he wrote commentaries on these first. And at what age he wrote the commentary? You know, he went to his guru. From Kerala he went walking, searching his guru up to Madhya Pradesh, Omkareshwar. And his guru was Govinda Bhagavat Pada. The guru, you know how many years the guru lived for? Guru is waiting for this disciple. The age of the guru is 1,000 years. Govinda Bhagavat Pada lived for 1,000 years. That kind of yogic knowledge and the practices were there in this country to sustain this body for 1,000 years, and on prana shakti, that also for a long time. Not even on actual gross food. Gross food has a gross prana, but on the prana shakti, on karma, on willpower, such. So he waited. And when the disciple reached there, the guru asked him, "Who are you?" Suppose the teacher asks you, "Who are you?" What will you say? "I am Mr. So and so or Miss So and so. I have come from such and such place." Shankaracharya replied, "Na bhumir, na tejo, na vapo, na vayu. Chidananda rupa shivoham shivoham." Dasha shloki he composed, 10 shlokas, saying who he is as the Atma. Then he stayed with the teacher. See, what all Gautam Buddha walked out of, all that Shankaracharya ji established properly. As a person, he doesn't need any guru. He is an avatar of Shivji himself. He doesn't need any guru. But he went all the way till Omkareshwar searching for his guru and found him there, surrendered to the guru, stayed with the guru, learned the Upanishads in the traditional manner. That's the Vedic parampara. that we don't study Vedanta independently, we study Vedanta only from a teacher. Acharyavan Purusho Veda, it is said. So he went, stayed there, surrendered to the teacher, learned the Upanishads, and then he asked the Guru for permission. Can I write commentary on the Upanishads? The Guru said, first you write on Vishnu Sasranam. So there is a commentary of Shankaracharya on Vishnu Sasranam. The Guru thought he will take some years to write on 1,000 names of Vishnu, and many names are repeated also. He wrote it in a matter of few days, not even months. Few days he wrote it and he submitted the document. He said, this is what it is. The Guru started reading. He couldn't put it down. He completed the entire Vishnu Sahasranam commentary. When he read through it, he called the disciple and he said, now you don't need my permission for anything. Write on whatever you like. And then he started. Gita, Upanishads, Brahma Sutra commentary he wrote. Today, if we are able to study the Gita properly, one of the reasons is that commentary of Shankaracharya ji. And Gurudev follows that commentary. His commentary is based on that. So first plan of reviving the culture was writing these commentaries. You see, most of these great people, no, one common link between them would be the literature. Vedavyasa ji compiled the Vedas. Gautam Buddha didn't write in that sense, but his teachings are compiled. Shankaracharya ji wrote commentaries, then created his own compositions also. How many things he did to revive this culture? First point was only writing commentaries. Then he wanted to share this knowledge. So as the group mentioned, they did the debates. See the openness of our country. Dissent is allowed in this culture. You can disagree and still be a Hindu. At the same time, open-mindedness is if in a debate I lose, then I am open-minded to accept that philosophy, that yes, that philosophy is better. And if kings and great scholars take up a particular philosophy, the rest of the people also will take it up. Single-handedly, Adi Shankaracharya ji in 16 years' time literally wiped out Buddhism out of this country's shores. Revived the entire Vedic culture back. Few people were left who were Buddhists after that. Majority of the people transformed back into the Vedic way of life, into the Advaitic tradition. So it was a massive work that he did. Through writing the commentaries, then also the debates that he did, went around the country. Third thing, he wrote so much of bhakti literature that actually his compositions on bhakti are much more than his commentaries on Advaita. For the common man, the amount of stotras that he wrote, he integrated the deities worship. Panchayatana Puja, which I think the group covered that, yeah. Panchayatana Puja. Yeah. Shiva, Vishnu, Devi, Ganesh, Surya. And that also he added Shanmata Sthapana also. So then our Kartikeya also is added in it. Subramanya. Major deities are these 6. All the other deities will be any of these forms only. So he consolidated the bhakti movement also, made people understand the importance of this. So the form which had gone away, he brought back all those things. Then established mathas. 4 main disciples of Shankaracharya ji, Sureshwaracharya, Hastamalaka, Padmapada and Totakacharya. In each part of the country, one matha was established. He was a very staunch patriot also, and he wanted national integration. One of the things that he did is so beautiful, that is going on even today, and that is he took a priest from Kerala, the Nambudri, and made him the priest in Badrinath. He's called Raval there. The Raval of Badrinath will be the priest from Kerala. See the level of acceptance, no? The North India has to accept the South Indian method of, and he took somebody from there and put them in Rameshwaram. So these people who say Aryan culture, Dravidian culture, and North doesn't accept South, South doesn't accept North, all that is fabricated theories put into our heads. National integration was always there. The Vedic culture was the culture which binded all of us in spite of the diversity. So Shankaracharya ji as a leader, as an able administrator, as a great poet, one has to appreciate him in different ways. This is how we revived the culture. Brought this knowledge to the common masses also, with compositions like Bhajagovindam, which every child can learn and sing. Broke through the caste barrier. As a son, he had promised his mother that whenever you need me, you remember I will be there, especially for your last days, I will definitely be there. And he went. Father has passed away long back. When the mother dropped the body, he was there next to her. And he had to do the cremation of the mother. Now a sannyasi is not supposed to do that. So the Brahmins outcasted him. Imagine a person like Shankaracharya of that stature also, the Brahmins outcasted him, saying ki now you are no more, we don't accept you anymore as belonging to our culture. But he didn't bother. He was a revolutionary at his times also, that this has to be done. This is my duty. I have committed to my mother also, and who will do it? Father has also gone away. So the revival of the culture he did in many of these ways, gave one Veda, disciples custody that you have to propagate this Veda and this way of life indicated in the Veda. Now, when how he passed away also nobody knows. You look at that thing. He went away, he disappeared behind Kedarnath. So this great master Samadhi also is not there. One only knows he went away behind Kedarnath and he just disappeared. At the age of 32, he left the body. So this is about Shankaracharya ji. Vedavayas ji, Gautam Buddha, Shankaracharya ji. Then the fourth is, which was team 4? Ram Krishna Paramhamsa. So he is another great master. Bhakti movement. And how much what is important to learn from his life is purity, intensity, surrender. Tremendous. The group already explained to you that he was a priest worshipping Mother Kali at Dakshineshwar. For him, Mother Kali is not an idol. For him, Mother Kali is real. Every day he used to worship, and his intensity of worship was such that when he was not able to realize, he felt every day he used to think, one more day gone and I have not had darshan of Mother Kali. So ultimately one day he took up the sickle from the hands of Mother Kali and he said, either you give me darshan today or my head will be offered at your feet. And he got the darshan there. He is one teacher in whose life something very unique happened. See, he used to then worship Mother Kali, and as he was worshipping Mother Kali, a point came where he felt that that Kali whom I am worshipping outside is actually my own true nature also. So the flowers that he was offering to the mother, he started putting on himself. He experienced that oneness, that experience of Mother Kali in his heart. Then he came across it, so he learned, as the group said, from a Brahmani also who was Tantra, he learned. Then a great teacher in his life came, Totapuri Maharaj. See, Totapuri Maharaj is an Advaitic. Never, he has used the support of a form, has complete Vairagya, and has been contemplating on the formless. And he guided Ramakrishna Paramahamsa to go from the form to the formless absolute. In his meditation, when Ramakrishna used to have the form of Mother Kali, Totapuri Maharaj finally guided him and he said, take the sword of discrimination and cut this form of Mother Kali. In 3 days' time, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa did that, which will take many, many years for people to do. 3 days' time he did it. Went into the absolute formless, absorbed. Totapuri Maharaj was stunned. He said, I have spent my whole life. You did this in 3 days' time. Because Ramakrishna Paramahamsa showed that what is the importance of form, surrender, bhakti, and the purity of mind. When he said, no, Kamini, Kanchan, Kirti, he would not be affected by it, he would not touch it. Because his mind was fully surrendered to the Lord. The most unique thing what I was speaking about is this now. Totapuri Maharaj got affected by a disease, extreme pain in his body. He comes to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and he says, I am not able to keep my mind steady on the formless. Initiate me into the form. So that formless contemplator got initiated from Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, who is his disciple. So the disciple is initiating the Guru into the form worship. This is not there. It is very unique about Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. The power of his devotion was such. And it was his purity and his realization that he was able to convince Vivekanandaji, and an agnostic like Vivekanandaji. Vivekanandaji at that time as Narendra, he had gone around to places, especially he was affiliated to Brahma Samaj, so he didn't believe in form. And he went around asking people saying, have you seen God? Have you seen God? Have you seen God? And everybody kept giving him theories. It was Ramakrishna Paramahamsa who said, yes, I have seen God and I see God more closely than I see you. Just think, what is that answer that he gave? That experience, that realization that he had is so profound and deep in him. Absolutely without any doubt, he said, I see God more closely than I see you. Vivekananda was shaken by that answer actually. And he started testing Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Because Ramakrishna will go into Samadhi and for days on end he will be in that Samadhi avastha. So his life is an example of all these aspects. And yes, he did try, as the group said, different practices of different religions, etc. One very important thing to learn from his life is the power of Upasana. That the mind will become what it constantly thinks about. And even the body will start manifesting those characteristics. So it is said when he did Hanumanji's Upasana, he actually developed a small tail. Yeah. See, for us it may be, that we may find it little funny also, but it is a fact that the power of that mind which is so pure and which does the Upasana, which becomes so one with that Upasya, that it will start experiencing those things. It is written in the gospel by his devotee, Mahendranath, M is called, gospel is written by M, that when he was worshipping Mother Kali, a point came in his Upasana that he was so identified with Mother Kali that he used to have periods. Now, for us, it may be like, oh, what is all this? But the power of Upasana is that. And people have written there. So, for his life, we see that what is the power of Upasana, that how does a person become one with the Upasya, that all those qualities start coming into that person, mentally, physically, at both levels. And it was this realization of oneness, essential oneness of everyone, that touched Vivekananda also. See, Vivekananda's skepticism also, it was countered by the mysticism of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and his realization. Even at the last minute when Ramakrishna is dropping the body, Vivekananda still has a doubt. And he thinks in his mind that if at this point he tells me I am God, I am ready to believe. This is his thought in his mind, Vivekananda's mind. Till now, he has tested Ramakrishna a lot. Because he was with Ramakrishna only for 2 years. 1884 he met Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. 1886 Ramakrishna Paramahamsa dropped the body. Only 2 years. So it's not so easy to transform from an agnostic to a complete believer in that much time. He kept testing. Many things he went through, but still the last traces of doubt are there in his mind. That at this time, if he tells me I am God, I am ready to believe. And the next thing Ramakrishna tells him is, he who came as Ram, he who came as Krishna is in front of you as Ramakrishna. Vivekananda completely surrendered, accepted, yes. And that's when Ramakrishna says that I give you the charge of all these disciples, take care of them. And he drops the body. So Vivekananda then has to handle all of these disciples. And those days, how he went through, the struggle he went through, all that, one should read, one should understand how, no money is there. Vivekananda's house himself, he did not have money. The family has come to utter poverty. Ramakrishna didn't leave any, though he could have had so many, people were there who would be his devotees, who are great wealthy people also. But he never believed in accumulating wealth. So there was no money. And how Vivekananda brought about this unity of all of these people, taking care of them, and some of the disciples are very young also. So that is Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's life, that one master, and how he produced this great saint Vivekananda. And Ramakrishna used to every day go up on the roof of the building, of his own building, and he would look that where are these disciples? They are supposed to come. He was waiting. And when the disciples came, finally when Vivekananda came, he said, why did you take so long to come? And Vivekananda was wondering, what is he telling me? Because as a student, he still did not know, his powers were not awakened. But when he came to Ramakrishna, then his powers also got awakened. And he understood many things. If you see in Ramakrishna Mission, they believe in this one legend that Ramakrishna is one of the Sapta Rishis. And Vivekananda, as a small child, goes to him. Ramakrishna is in deep meditation. He is sitting quietly as a Sapta Rishi. So as a small child, Vivekananda as though goes to him and wakes him up, and he says, come down. You have to come with me. That story they tell always in the beginning. So Ramakrishna comes down first and then Vivekananda follows to revive this culture. The Guru comes down, then the Guru trains the disciple, and then the culture is revived. That's what their faith is. Vivekananda I will not do, because let the group present. And then comes our Gurudev, or Ramana Maharshi. So actually what was brought out here, the life of Ramana Maharshi was beautiful, and the contribution to culture. See, Ramana Maharshi's life, generally we only think in terms of he was an individual saint. But his contribution to culture in terms of the direct path is the most immense contribution. Because all the other paths, they will take a support system. Ramana Maharshi, what he did was a very unique thing. Without dismissing the form, the direct path he propagated. That's the beauty of Ramana Maharshi. See, when he went from his home, he went straight to Tiruvannamalai because he had a pull from Tiruvannamalai. He heard about Tiruvannamalai from his uncle. And when he heard, he started feeling that I must visit there. Then the death experience happened. And he was given fees for his school. To give in the school, the monthly or quarterly fees, whatever. That money which he was given, at age of 16, Venkatraman was his name. He decided now there is no point in this academic study. I want to know the absolute, who am I truly? So I want to go. Imagine at age of 16, this number 16 has a lot of significance. Shankaracharya ji also 16. Jnaneshwar Maharaj wrote all this at 16. Ramana Maharshi also 16. So at 16 years, you think what a decision he took. He said, I have to leave. No thought about what will be my future, security, food, who will take care of me, nothing. That money he took, went to the railway station, bought a ticket, Madurai to Tiruvannamalai. Got down at Tiruvannamalai, went straight to the Arunachala temple. And first thing what he does there, he prostrates to Lord Shiva and he says, O Father of the universe, I have come, I surrender unto thee. For him, the entire Arunachal mountain is the form of Shiva. He did not consider it as just a mountain. Then he went, took bath in the tank, tonsured his head, and whatever money was left, what would you and I do? At least with that, I'll buy some food for some days. He threw it in the tank, put it in the tank, and he started living as a renunciate. He has not taken formal sannyas, but in the mind, he is already a sannyasi. Dropped everything. For some days, he used to be, people used to call him Kumar Swami. He used to be in the temple. 11 years he was in silence. So they started calling me Mauni Swami also. People started coming to him more and more. Somebody will bring food, somebody will come, taking care of him, give him some water, food, everything. And they would also ask spiritual questions and all that. So he started feeling now there's too many people coming now. So in the temple, there is a gufa type of a thing, below the ground, Patala Gufa it is called. He went there to be away from people. So people suddenly saw that he is not there anymore. They looked around, but they didn't think that he is down there. Maggots and all of that, some of these creatures, they were all down there. And his leg, if you see one of his legs is not proper. When he walks, there are documentaries. His leg got eaten up, affected very badly. And he was in Samadhi Avastha. He doesn't know about his body, what has happened. Sheshadri Swami found him there. So next to Ramana Ashram, there is the ashram of Sheshadri Swami. So this Sheshadri Swami is the one who found Ramana Maharshi down there in the Patal Gufa. Today they have put a lingam there and it's a nice place. People visit there and they have given the whole write-up there. But Sheshadri Swami found him there, brought him out, nursed him back, and then Ramana Maharshi went to the hill. There he stayed in Virupaksha Guha. There is another great saint called Virupaksha. He was a yogi. His Gufa. That yogi passed away before, it seems. And his disciple was there, and then in that Gufa Ramana Maharshi used to stay, and then down was Skandashram. No, up is Skandashram, down is Virupaksha Gufa. So there Skandashram was finally built, where Ramana Maharshi spent more time. And ultimately, when more and more people started knowing about him and the direct path, who am I inquiry, then a proper Ramana Ashram as it is there today, that was constructed down there. Just being there, he did not go out of Tiruvannamalai at all. But the path that he advocated of who am I was such a straight path. See, one thing again, Ramana Maharshi did not reject any of these systems of Hindu culture, but he emphasized on who am I inquiry. So for those people who are able to do that who am I inquiry, their mind is subtle and single pointed, he would tell them directly focus on this. But as they said, Upadeshar has the essence of Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Raja Yoga. So to the appropriate people, he would tell the appropriate thing also. Because he himself was a devotee of Lord Shiva. But his main path was the path of inquiry. So if anybody is ready, he would just tell them inquire into the source of this I. From where this small I is rising, from where this ego is rising, inquire into that. That is to be his Ramban. Ramban means that which will be achuk. It will go and hit the target. About freedom struggle, he said this. About World War, when they asked him that, World War is going on, you are a great saint, what would you say would bring peace to this world? What was his question? He said, which world? That's all. Which world? There is no world. Inquire into the source of I, this whole world will disappear. He kept repeating that, emphasizing that so much. Many people from abroad, many people in this country, they all used to come to him because of this self-inquiry, self-observation, two things. And he has not formally studied the Vedas, but the person is established in this truth. Vedic Pandits used to come to him and get clarifications on the Vedic knowledge, the difficulties there in understanding certain things. In fact, Upadesh Sar is a composition like that. One great poet, Kavya Kantaka Ganapati Muni, who was a great composer in Sanskrit. Now you just see what is the power of this person's realization. He has not studied Sanskrit formally. He has not studied Tamil formally. But the truth that he has realized made him adept in any of these. Wherever he wants to put his mind, he will know. Because that's the power of a man of realization. So Kavya Kantaka Ganapati Muni is a great Sanskrit scholar. Made many, many compositions. Now he is writing the divine leelas of Lord Shiva. In that he comes across this story where there is a conversation between Lord Shiva and the rishis of Darukavana. That conversation, he says, I am incapable of writing what Lord Shiva would have said. So he goes to Ramana Maharshi. And Ramana Maharshi composes 30 verses. It is in Tamil actually called Upadesha Undiyar, because Kavyakanta Ganapati Muni is writing it in Tamil, the divine Leelas of Lord Shiva. So Ramana Maharshi composes that in Tamil first. Then he translates that into Sanskrit, which is his Upadesha, what we learn in Sanskrit. Karturajnaya prapyate phalam karma kim param karma tajjadam. 30 verses translated in Sanskrit. And the essence of all the philosophies is there in that. So scholars used to come to him, newcomers used to come to him, devotees used to come to him, freedom fighters used to come to him, some of the political people used to come to him, so many people across the world, they would come there. One was who am I inquiry, another was, as the group said, silence. Many times he won't speak, but in his presence, the doubts of people would get clarified. That's the power of the realization. So, speaking, silence, and seeing. The glance of Ramana Maharshi also would be full of compassion, love, illumination, that if he looks at somebody also, they would experience what they need to experience at that point in time. And he had so much of love for all the animals also. You know, the monkeys, the peacocks, even today there will be a lot of them there. And one cow called Lakshmi, he is said to have given liberation to that cow when she dropped the body. Lakshmi. Samadhi of Lakshmi is also there. So this is Ramana Maharshi, and how he revived this culture by propagating the direct path. He did not create an ashram. Devotees build the ashram. He has not told devotees, now you build it. Devotees created the ashram and they requested Bhagavan to please come stay there for the convenience of the devotees. And look at his detachment, that sarcoma, he was affected with this disease called sarcoma, and he had boil on his hand. So the doctor said, we have to operate this. So should I operate? Doctor said, we have to give you anesthesia. He says, I have gone beyond the body long back, don't worry, operate. Without anesthesia, that whole operation was done and the boil was removed. 3 times it happened to him. Again the boil came back in some other place in the same hand. Again removed. Again came back. Again removed. But by the 3rd time it was known that now that has spread across the body and the body will drop. On the last day also, his hand was in so much of pain. He can't even sit. But he tells the devotees, his devotee, that make me sit properly. There are so many who have come to have darshan. They must see. So he gives darshan. And in that state, finally, he drops the body. So that is the power of Ramana Maharshi, that such unique things happened in his life. The power of his silence, the power of his, going beyond the body, the direct inquiry. And even today, Ramana Maharshi, there are so many thousands and millions of people who are getting inspired by his direct path. And how many of you have been to Tiruvannamalai? Only 3. If others get a chance, please go. You will feel the presence. And one unique thing he used to do was Giri Pradakshina. The whole hill, because for him it was Lord Shiva himself. And it's written in the Puranas also. So then he used to do Giri Pradakshina, barefoot. He used to walk up on the mountain barefoot, because for him this is sacred. So these are the ways by which these great masters have revived our culture. About Gurudev, so we will also see a whole film on a quest we will see, and then we will do more discussions on that also. So for today we will stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.